Okay, well, let me introduce you to the people here. Dilan Qadir grew up in Kurdistan region in Iraq. After graduating from university in 2009, he has worked for a period as a journalist and maintained a blog where he has written on Kurdish politics and the dominance of religion in the region. With the arrival of the Islamic State and the militarization of the Kurdish and Iraqi society at large in 2014, Dilan moved to Montreal, Quebec as a refugee. These days, he works as a support worker and writes poetry and fiction. His writings have appeared in a number of online and print publications. Dilan lives in Vancouver, BC. Dilan, how's the weather?
The weather is lovely today, surprisingly.
Oh, good.
Rainy and overcast yesterday, but today it's sunny outside.
Glad to hear it. Do you have anything to add to that? Anything you'd like to say?
No, it's good. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
I've looked forward to your reading, so why don't we get into it?
Oh, okay. Just give me 1 second so I pull up something here. Can you hear me, Keith?
Yes, we are ready when you are.
A short introduction of the chapter, but before that, I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from Musquamish and Tsleil-Waututh unceded territories known as Vancouver, BC. The piece that I'm going to read is from the beginning of the manuscript of the novel. We see a character, his name is Hadi. This is taking place at the beginning of the 2003 occupation of Iraq. Hadi is a member of the Ba'ath Party, and the day when the events take place is the Thursday when the American ground forces are attacking the city of Hudad. Hudad, for the purposes of this reading, is a city in central Iraq. It's partly based on Baghdad, but it's a fictional city. Okay. The moon. The day the American ground forces entered the city of Hudad, the Presidential Museum closed its door to the public at noon for the first time. Hadi, the deputy director of the museum, was the last employee to leave at 1 p.m. His commute home, usually a 20-minute drive, took him an hour. The traffic was dense, with flocks of residents fleeing, except for the vehicle-less people, the sympathizers of the regime, and the incredulous folks not convinced that the raging war would end in an out-and-out occupation. Hadi's home was in the residential neighborhood, inhabited mostly by middle-class families, higher-ups in the government, business owners, and the nouveau riche who have risen from exploiting the embargo in Iraq. Once Hadi reached home, his 4-year-old daughter, Zainab, scampered toward him, hugging his right leg. "Daddy!" Zainab yelled out, surprised to see her father earlier than usual. "Where's Mommy, Zuzu?" Hadi asked his daughter. Zainab, having just woken up from a nap, was too lively to address the question. Come, quick," she said as she gripped Hadi's pinky finger with her tiny hands and pulled him to the TV to watch animations. Her favorites were the dubbed Disney cartoons. Hadi's stay-at-home wife, Amal, wearing a black headband and a pink kaftan, emerged from the kitchen and quickly eyed him to see if he was carrying any bags of groceries. She saw none, so she didn't bother to approach him. "Welcome home, husband," Amal said from the kitchen door. Her greeting was clinical. No smiles, no intonation of warmth. She was a reserved, beautiful woman, although being a stay-at-home mom has taken some of the sparkle out of her eyes. The couple's short greetings were one of the few occasions now when Hadi and his wife looked at each other in the face. 16 years of marriage had resulted in some stable arrangement between them. Respect was more important than passion. Providing for the kids and saving face came before satisfying desires or fantasies. The family was finally whole at the dinner table when Hadi's shy and reclusive teenage son, Hassan, sat down. They tried to have a normal dinner despite the day's earlier commotion. They ate their okra stew silently, but with a sense of urgency. Hadi's and Amal's eyes locked for a second, and the twinkle in their eyes expressed their gratitude that the kids are well fed. As Amal started to clear the table, however, the sound of sudden explosions traveled through the city and reverberated around the neighborhood. Amal's heart fluttered and her fear flushed her face with warm blood. She dropped the 2 plates and the 2 glasses she was carrying. The plates shattered on a patch of uncarpeted cement flooring near the sink, and the glasses tipped over, spilling the water. Hadi rushed to pick up his daughter, and grabbing his son's hand, led the family to the master bedroom. Sitrak ya Rab, Sitrak ya Satir, may God protect us, may God save us, Amal cried out as she followed the others. She shut and locked the door behind her, as if that would somehow be of some help. Hadi drew the curtains, and the family cowered and huddled in a corner in the bedroom, waiting for the inevitable. The power then went out. A minute later, the airstrikes poured down like a heavy shower. Amal reached over and pulled a blanket from the bed onto the children for protection. "What's wrong with you?" Hadi said in a hushed voice, wishing that Zainab and Hassan wouldn't hear their parents bickering. "Are you trying to suffocate them?" He heaved the blanket with one hand and was about to fold it, but he stopped short once he felt a pull from his children grasping to its edge. Amal gave him a glance of triumph with her thin, pursed lips, which was not so visible in the semi-dark room. Hadi reciprocated by letting out a grunt. Huddling together with a blanket, though, was not considered manly by Hadi, and to avoid further humiliation, he rose and started walking away. "Where are you going?" Amal called after him. Without turning back, Hadi extended an arm toward Amal and motioned her with his hand to stay put. "I'll be back in a minute," he said. Barefoot in the front courtyard and still wearing his white long-sleeve shirt and gray dress pants, Hadi listened carefully to the rumblings of the airstrikes, the whistling followed by the cracks. Every now and then the darkening sky of the evening brightened with a loud explosion. Hadi began to realize that the strikes, though intense, weren't random, and they most likely targeted military and Ba'ath Party locations. He then thought about her, his lovely Samira, his forbidden love, and he wondered if she was doing okay. He walked back inside the house, and his regained composure slightly eased the tense anxiety in the bedroom. "Have you seen my jacket?" Hadi asked his wife, still with their children in the corner. The urge to go to the museum to make sure it was securely locked and the guards hadn't abandoned it was growing with each second. "What do you need a jacket for?" Amal asked. Hadi paused. It wasn't customary for Amal to question his actions. With the children within earshot, he let it pass. He kept looking and found the jacket on the sofa's arm in the living room. He returned to the bedroom one more time, kissed Zainab and Hassan on their heads, and told Amal he had to go to check on the museum. Before climbing into his black SUV, Hadi brought a rifle from the back of his car, a Kalashnikov secured and hidden under a thick folded blanket, and he placed it on the front seat. The streets were empty as he drove, and the lights were off. By the time he reached the museum in the Ba'ath Party district, night had fallen. He was relieved to see the guards behind the glass door entrance. The museum was located on the first, second, and third floors of a 7-story, nondescript rectangular building that also housed the regional archives. Hadi motioned to the guards and they let him in. They were happy to see him, and they became especially happy once they found out he had brought them the leftover okra stew, rice, bread, and even his wife's homemade date-filled cookies. Now that Hadi was within walls that felt like a second home, his sense of confidence grew. He walked to the recent acquisitions section and, using a set of keys only he was allowed to carry, he unlocked a display case in the middle of the hall. He took out a pair of digital binoculars. The plaque under the display case stated the binoculars had features like night vision and heat sensors. They were a recent acquirement of the Presidential Museum. The museum showcased significant moments of Saddam Hussein's life in portraits and photographs with gilded sayings by Saddam himself. There was the door-sized portrait of him in simple green military fatigues, pointing a shotgun with his right hand at the sky, and the inscription stating that Iraq had won the prolonged 8-year Iran-Iraq war. There was the door-sized portrait of him, noticeable also was the wall-sized portrait of him wearing a white fedora and waving to a cheering crowd at a stadium with his right arm raised like a benevolent king. And of course, several of his codes, ranging from education to politics, from manliness to leadership, were framed and displayed between the portraits. One quote, written in large black calligraphy, read, "Politics is when you say you are going to do one thing while intending to do another. Then you do neither what you said nor what you intended." The museum also showcased a collection of historical artifacts and military technology, and displaying them side by side with the portrait was not without a purpose. The president aspired to weld his life to the history of Iraq and the military inventions, seeing himself as the central link between a glorified past and future victories. Binoculars in hand and moved by curiosity and foreboding, Hadi climbed 7 flights of stairs. Once on the rooftop, he lifted the binoculars to his eyes and scanned the horizon. 7 stories up, and Hudad being a flat city, not much obstructed his view. To the northwest, smoke was rising over a building surrounded by what looked like American tanks, vehicles, and troops resembling a swarm of wasps attacking a beehive. The enemy had come to invade the country. Hadi shivered at the thought. His breathing became shallow. He furrowed his brows. He felt a headache approaching, the one he usually got whenever sudden emotions welled up in him. He stepped away from the edge of the roof and called a friend in the military on his satellite phone. Hadi's friend replied, talking in quick succession, "It's no longer safe to speak through a satellite phone. Make sure you don't run out of supplies. Maybe keep a low profile. Good luck." The call ended before Hadi could respond. He had sought some sort of reassurance from the phone call, but he was left in a whirlpool of questions. Why was his friend frightened? What did he mean by supply? Good luck with what? What was going on? Hadi walked toward the edge of the roof, leaned over the parapet, and saw no traffic. The streets deserted. The usual sounds of traffic within Hudad, a city just under 2 million, had been replaced by the sounds of airstrikes, gunfire, and distant helicopters. So, the cowardly traitors have run away, Hadi thought, thinking of those he had seen fleeing earlier. Hadi, a card-holding member of the Ba'ath Party, considered it treasonous to abandon the party, the city, and the nation at such a crucial juncture. As Hadi contrasted himself to those who fled, he was filled with a sense of valor and righteousness. He was momentarily ignorant to the fact that he too was among the many residents who had doubted that the Americans would conquer any towns, even though the Americans had been publicly mulling over the war for months, even though they had declared war and had set their heavy boot-clad feet in Iraq 2 weeks ago, entering first from the south and each day advancing closer to the city, even though they had recently taken control of the airport in the city's northwest. Despite all that, Hadi kept wishing that any instant the Americans would retreat and it would all disappear in a puff of smoke. Hadi created a mental checklist of places he had to visit. The world had suddenly become a giant hourglass. He brought the binoculars back to the display case, thanked the guards for their diligence, left the museum, and climbed into his car. He arrived at the Ba'ath Party Secretariat with a warm heart, proud he was there as proof of his loyalty. He approached the sentry, who, however, looked at Hadi suspiciously, and then down at the list of names on the clipboard he was holding. "You are not authorized to enter," the hulky sentry announced. "But I'm sure I will be of some use if you let me pass," Hadi argued, annoyed. "I'm the deputy director of the Presidential Museum." The sentry looked at Hadi quizzically, seeing if he had ever heard of Hadi's position. He hadn't. Besides, his orders were clear. "Beat it," the sentry yelled at him. I will stop there. Keith.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.